Hi there, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we are going to take you through the construction activities as well as show you the cost and quantity of materials used for the construction of this 6-bedroom duplex from the foundation to the DPC. Stay tuned as we take you through the process. So when we go to a new site, the first thing we do in order to set out a building is to identify the reference point, which of course would have been established on the site plan. Now, when you establish that reference point, it is from there you will take all your measurements and then establish the first point of the building. Then from there, we square, because in most cases you will notice that the land will not be square. Then you square all the sides of the building, and from there bring out the profile space, and then put the profile boards and mark out all the internal and external spaces of the building. So this is how it is done. That's the setting out. And after you have marked out all the internal and external spaces, then you tie corresponding lines and then square it and confirm that everything is still in order. Only once that has been confirmed, then the excavation begins. So, after excavation has been completed, the next thing we do, of course, is to take a level for the foundation. So, you reference the structural drawing, of course, to get the thickness of the foundation footings. Then, peg it, and then, of course, the column base. Cast the column base, mount the columns, which is the activity that's going on here. And of course, is that before you can stand any column, you have to take reference from two crossing lines, from the profile board, and of course plumb it down to ensure that it's at the right position. If it's not, of course, you see how he moved it until we get it to be in the right position. Then it is put in position, and of course made firm, and then the casting around it takes place. Only after this has been completed will then the block work begin. And of course the block work is also done taking clue from the profile board. The profile board is more like our reference point at this point until all the blocks have been set from the foundation level. So at this point, every reference is being made from the profile board. So you take the reference from the profile board, setting the lines, and of course plumbing it down to get all the block, both internal and external ones. And after this has been done, of course, when you get at any angle, after plumbing it down, you also confirm it with a square, just like we are doing here. So this is an angle, a right angle. So that's the intersection of two lines. So you also make sure that they are square, just as we are doing here. Because if you miss it at this point, it will affect the building even at finishing level. That's why when you come to some buildings, you now notice that when they were tiling, you see them cutting tiles diagonally, just to make sure that they get all the corners of the building. But if a building is perfectly square, you wouldn't need to do that. So that is what we do, trying to ensure that every corner of the building is square. Now, this process continues line after line until all the block walls have been formed and linked to each other. Then the laying of blocks to the DPC level commences. So at this point, we lay the blocks to, depending on the height of the DPC on the drawing. In some cases, it will be 5 blocks. In some cases, it will be 6 blocks or 7 blocks. In some cases, depending on the recommendations of the structural engineer, we could have to do a plinth beam, for all the external walls. In some cases, to be all the walls in the building. So for this particular one, we had 5 blocks plus a plinth beam that went through all the external walls and of course the major walls in the building, ensuring that it is chained together, to link all the columns and of course help it to transload, to hold the building firm, and of course transload the building load to the DPC, to the foundation. So that is about it here. And of course, by the time this block is raised throughout the foundation space to the DPC level, so at this point, the carpentry work for the plinth beam had already begun. And of course, the boarding of the starter bars, which are the columns that's starting from the foundation. That is what is going on here. And of course, this takes place before the filling of the foundation space with laterite or condensed sharp sand or whatever that is available or of course recommended is being done. So at this point, the casting of the columns at the foundation at the DPC stage has taken place, and the plinth beam also had been done, and then the filling is the next thing to be done here. Now, it might interest you to know that the choice of which kind of material to use for filling is mainly dependent on availability, the preference, and cost concerns. Many people argue which one is better, whether to use sharp sand and of course or to use laterite. Yes, laterite is readily available, right, in most places in Nigeria and relatively cheaper than sharp sand. But sharp sand actually remains a better option, right? Is because it's better and safer choice for filling a foundation, especially in areas with high water tables or poor drainage. But laterite, of course, we've mentioned, is cheaper and more common. But in some cases, it has some properties that can lead to long-term foundation problems. For instance, during rainy season, laterite could get so soft and sticky, which may make it to, the capillarity of it. It may make it to retain some kind of water that may eventually affect the foundation, depending on the water table within the environment upon which the construction is being done. So the choice would be dependent on a number of things, including the water table within the area, the availability of the kind of material that is rampant within the area, and of course, whenever we're talking about building, one of the things that we consider is also the cost associated to that activity. Now, after the filling of the entire foundation space with laterite or condensed sand, the next activity is to water it. Yes, you have to water it very well to sink and settle. Then after that, we compact and then lay the DPM and then cast the mass foundation concrete, the mass concrete. Now, by the time all these were completed, it was observed that the following material had been used: 1 bag of 2 inches nails, 1 bag of 3 inches nails, 5 bundles of peg, and 34 2x2, which we used as a profile board. Then the lines were 10, shovel 5, headpans 5. The cement used for this work, for both the casting of the foundation space as well as the casting of the DPC, was 260. Then the sand was 10 trips of the 15 tons. Then the 30 tons of chippings that were used were 2. And the 16 mm rods used here were 45, while the 12 mm rods used were 130. Then the 8 mm used were 60. Then 1 roll of binding wire. Then the 9 inches blocks used here were 2,500. Then of course the filling sand was 13 of the whole truck. Whole truck is more like 30 tons. Then the sand gravel we used for casting of DPC were 8 strips. Then of course the DPM, there was provision for the DPM, and of course we used 100 boards for boarding and the rest of them. So the total cost of all the materials used to build this 491 square meter duplex is 14,313,400 naira, whereas the total cost of the labor that did this work is 2,500,000 naira. That brings the total cost of the material and labor to 16,813,400 naira. Now, so this implies that building a similar project in Nigeria today will cost you from 60 million upwards for this milestone foundation to DPC, plus the engineer fees.